This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998 and Ash. Our story begins as many stories do, with a boy, a massive sentient sludge, and a fist. Specifically, the boy is Izuku Midoriya, better known as Deku, who following some rather brutal bullying from his classmate Katsuki Bakugou, had been on his way home when he'd been attacked by a sludge villain. Try though he might, Deku had been unable to free himself from the monster's clutches, with it seeming as though he would soon asphyxiate, leaving the villain to hide out in his body. However, just as lights begin to pop behind his eyes, a fist comes seemingly out of nowhere to collide with the sludge villain, sending the amorphous terror splattering away in response to the force of his tremendous punch. Coughing and spluttering as he falls to his knees, Deku looks around wildly for his savior, and while for a moment he believes it to be the grinning visage of All Might, when he blinks away the haze of suffocation, he is instead met by a grizzled middle-aged man wearing a mask over his unshaven face, and a green trench coat that flaps behind him like a cape. In a gruff voice, this nameless savior then chides the boy to watch himself, otherwise he'll end up in an early grave, since villains like that guy are all over the place, being too minded to be picked up by most pro-heroes, though that doesn't mean they can't be dangerous when they wanna be. Turning his back on him, the man then begins strutting away, evidently having no interest in Deku's thanks. That is until he hears the name the green-haired boy calls him, Mr. O'Clock, with this giving the man pause, as he states that he ain't O'Clock. That guy died a long time ago. Despite having been on the verge of death himself just moments ago, Deku displays a surprising amount of energy as he adamantly protests that he's sure the man is none other than the high-speed hero O'Clock, citing his stance, height, and even the punch he threw as being emblematic of the hero, while pulling out one of his hero notebooks from his backpack in which he reveals a detailed set of notes on the lost hero. Unfortunately, if this was intended to impress the stranger, it has quite the opposite effect, with a slight frown curling his lips as he states that O'Clock ain't a guy worth idolizing. He was just another band-aid over a much bigger wound. Not that he knows the guy personally or anything, it's just that's what a lot of heroes are these days. As expected, these words cause Deku to wilt a little, though all the same, he does not lose his zeal, as he replies that while he knows heroes aren't perfect, he still believes in them, since they want to help people in need no matter who they are, and do the right thing no matter the cost. That's why his dream is to be the sort of hero who saves everyone regardless of how big or small their problem is, and it's why he's going to keep chasing it, even if he is quirkless. For a moment, the scruffy man says nothing, eyeing the boy up carefully, as he cannot help but be reminded of his former disciple Koichi. Then, with a slightly menacing grin, asks who told him he needs a quirk to be a hero. A little confused, Deku begins to stammer that every hero has a quirk, though cutting him off, the man replies that maybe every licensed hero does, but the type of hero the kid described as someone anyone can be, as long as they have the guts and iron will to fight for justice. Take him for example. He may not have a quirk, or a license, but he's still out here kicking villains' asses and saving scrawny little punks like him. Unfortunately, rather than motivating Deku as he had hoped, this simply turns his confusion into shock, as he begins profusely apologizing for presuming he was O'Clock. Though, shrugging it off, the man gruffly replies that he can make it up to him by loaning him some cash for a pack of smokes, since he's fresh out, and for the record, the name's Knuckleduster. He then begins heading back into the shopping district with Deku in hot pursuit, that nerdy curiosity back in his eyes, as he asks if this means Knuckleduster is a vigilante, to which the scruffy man grins that some people call him that, but he prefers to see himself as a janitor, the janitor of the fist specifically, mopping up trouble wherever it pops up. A little unnerved by this, Deku protests that violence isn't always the answer, though with a harsh laugh, Knuckleduster retorts that this is where the kid's wrong. Violence is the answer, though like any answer, the why is just as important as the what. He ain't out here to get his kicks beating on weaklings. He's just using what limited power he has to help people. Not to mention there's nothing like a good fight to push oneself to be their best. Nodding along, Deku says that he can understand that, since it's just another way to go beyond plus ultra, with Knuckleduster grinning that he's a smart kid since not many people can see that. Unfortunately, before more can be said on the matter, a loud explosion rings in the pair's ears, with them rushing off to find the sludge villain now reforged and holding Bakugou hostage. All around, several pro-heroes watch on in horror, paralyzed by fear or indecision, though this is not a problem for Deku, who feels his body moving before he can even think, as he runs headlong at the villain in an attempt to save his former friend. And to his shock, when he throws a punch at the sludgy criminal, he goes flying, just as he did when Knuckleduster hit him, only to realize that this is because Knuckleduster did hit him once again, having followed right behind the boy in an attempt to show this 2-bit thug why he should cut his losses and scram. All the same, the grizzled man has nothing but praise for Deku, pulling him away from the pros who attempt to lambast him, while grinning that not a one of them came to that kid's rescue despite having quirks and gear and training, but Deku did. That's what being a real hero is all about. So he's made a decision. From today on, he's going to be the boy's master, and he's going to help him go pro. He will be a hero. Though this is not entirely, or even partially, how he imagined his journey to his dream would begin, Deku is nonetheless grateful, promising to do his best, with Knuckleduster agreeing that he'll make certain of it, even insinuating that he might start crashing on the boy's couch until he is forcibly dissuaded from this, as Deku's fairly certain that his mum's desire for him to achieve his dream does not extend to allowing a scary hobo to start living with them. All the same, from that moment onwards, Knuckleduster is never far away, often approaching Deku on his way back from school and taking him to secluded parts of the city for training. To the green-haired youth's surprise, this is not just on how to throw a punch as he had thought, since while he is made to work out incredibly hard in order to build muscle, as well as to spar with Knuckleduster until he's more bruised than boy, his new master also takes the time to teach him the other skills that will be essential in their line of work, such as how to use and maintain his gadgets like his grappling hook and the taser knuckle, how to surveil someone without them noticing, and even how to drop a target at 50 feet with a sniper rifle, the latter skill being one Deku endeavors to never put to use. In spite of this, as well as the fact that he drinks like a fish, smokes like a chimney, and honestly frightens Deku a little bit, it cannot be denied that Knuckleduster is a good teacher, taking the time to make sure that his disciple understands the fundamentals before moving on to something new, since sloppy fundamentals and an overinflated estimation of one's own skills are a surefire way to end up in the ground. It is during this time that Deku also comes to learn about Koichi, Knuckleduster's last student, and currently a sidekick to a real pro hero, with the old man promising to introduce them sometime, since he thinks they'd get along. However, it seems that not all of Knuckleduster's contacts are on the up and up, as he also reveals that one of his associates is actually an underworld broker who provides him with most of his gear, all of which Deku will eventually need as well, so in time he'll introduce him too, though not until the kid's less naive, since as he is now, Giran would probably just take his kidneys and leave him 200 yen for the bus ride home. However, practice and stories are not Knuckleduster's only teaching tools, with his favourite being practical experience, something he is eager to give Deku once he's convinced he won't die, with the pair beginning to go on patrol together. This naturally requires a costume to avoid being arrested for assault, though considering their budget is zero, this comes in the form of Knuckleduster giving Deku one of his old trench coats that doesn't fit anymore, as well as a strip of black fabric with eye holes cut in it to serve as a mask. Shockingly, this is enough to keep his identity secret whenever he joins his master on the prowl, with them even managing to subdue a few low-level villains who think they can get away with terrorizing the weak. Though Deku frequently finds himself in mortal peril as a quirkless teen going up against criminals with a wide range of abilities, as well as the fact that his teacher is possibly a crazy person who likes to pick fights with people he realistically shouldn't be able to beat, the boy cannot deny that when he's out patrolling, he feels good. Like, what he's doing is helping people, and that makes it all worthwhile. Seeing this, Knuckleduster begins pushing Deku to go further, having him take the lead and even fight a couple of crooks on his own while he watches and barks suggestions. To the credit of both master and student, thanks to all the hard work they have put in, Deku is able to hold his own, having developed taut ropes of muscle as well as the battle IQ to use them to the fullest, with this seeing an uptick in the young man's confidence, to the point where even Bakugou can't bother him anymore, since he's pretty sure that if push came to shove, he could take Kachan in a fight, and maybe it's Knuckleduster rubbing off on him, but part of him wants to test this theory. However, at present there is no time to give Bakugou a well-deserved whooping, as with the end of middle school rapidly approaching, Deku must prepare for high school, and now that he is Knuckleduster's training, he's more determined than ever to enroll in UA's hero course. Having no ill will towards pro heroes in spite of viewing the hero system itself as flawed, the grizzled Vigilante is of course willing to help Deku prepare for the entrance exams, both through an even more intensive regimen of physical training, such as making the boy carry him on his back as he runs and jumps through the tetanus hellscape of Takaba Municipal Beach Park, but also through helping him study, showing that in spite of having a punch-first style investigation, he is actually quite a smart and observant man, with a good head for facts, just like his student. Finally, the day of the entrance exam rolls around, with Deku heading to UA, where like in canon, he meets fellow prospective hero Chaku Uraraka, with the pair speaking briefly before the exam begins. Also like in canon, the exam is split into two portions, the written and practical tests, with Deku having no trouble with the written test considering what a fanboy he is, as well as the extra study time with his master, whereas the practical test is a touch more problematic, considering he will be fighting robots, something which in spite of his improved punching acumen, he probably cannot break with just his fists alone. Thankfully, due to Knuckleduster having factored in that this test would likely be something catered to quirk usage, they had written to the school in advance and received special dispensation for Deku to bring his hero gear, which in this case are his own set of brass knuckles, as well as his grappling hook for mobility. Not only that, but due to the study of his gear, he suspects that he will be able to find these robots' weak spots and deactivate them, meaning things aren't as bleak as they might first appear. Unfortunately, such a plan requires careful observation, with Deku retreating to the top of a building to watch the other examinees battle the robots, robots and make note of any structural weaknesses they might have. This does result in the others gaining an early point lead on the green-haired boy, though Deku is confident he can make it up. However, it seems fate is not on his side, as just when he figures out that each class of robot has a small access panel on their back which he should be able to get into and shut the bots down, he spots something which draws his attention: Uraraka trapped under rubble. To make matters worse, the largest of all robots, the dreaded 0-point area boss, is making its way towards her, and from the look of it, no one else is willing to stop earning points to save the girl from being crushed. So like with Bakugou, it's up to Deku to do the right thing. Making use of his grappling hook, the boy latches onto the giant robot, then leaping from his vantage point swings down to land on the mechanical monstrosity's back, only to find that there is no access panel on this model. By now the 0-pointer has gotten rather close to Uraraka, and so seeing no alternative, Deku does what his master taught him and starts punching. 1, 2, 3, 10, 20 punches all in the same spot, and while individually they are not much, together these hits are able to warp and even shatter steel, giving way to the wiring within. And having no button to press for override nor a manual, the boy once more takes a leaf from Knuckleduster's book, by acting now, thinking later, as he grabs random wires and begins yanking them out. Surprisingly, this does actually work, with the robot coming to a shuddering halt mere feet from the prone form of Uraraka, though at the cost of using up the last of Deku's exam time, meaning he finishes the test with 0 points. Naturally, this leaves Deku despondent, with the next several days being spent in a state of anxiety as he awaits the results of his test, though he suspects he knows what it is considering the outcome of the practical exam. Unfortunately, this begins bleeding into other areas of his life, such as his patrols with Knuckleduster, with the old man having to step in more than once to save a distracted Deku from a goon he should have been able to KO easily. Finally growing tired of this, Knuckleduster questions his protege on what's the matter with him, though the answer is far from what he expects, as Deku explains his situation and grows teary-eyed while stating that it was stupid of him to think he could ever make it into UA without a quirk. Briefly, Knuckleduster finds himself at a loss for words. Then as his grizzled face softens slightly, he lays a hand on the boy in a manner far more gently than he ever has before, and states the only stupid thing he can ever do is give up. Take it from him, as someone who once let a setback drive him to give up on everything he cared about. Looking his master in the eye, Deku asks if he really means that, to which the man replies that he does, since he has always believed Deku had the makings of a great hero in him, fancy hero school or not, and so far the boy has not disappointed him, growing beyond what anyone would have believed possible of the scrawny lad he met almost a year ago. So regardless if this test comes up win, lose or draw, Deku should hold his head high. There are many things the green-haired youth would like to say in that moment, though strangely enough, he cannot bring himself to articulate any of them, and so instead simply gives the man a soft smile and a simple nod of thanks, before returning to his patrol, now with a calmer spirit and a renewed sense of purpose. By the time he sneaks back into his room the next morning, the sun is already up, and so feigning having been asleep, Deku steps into the living room where his mother is waiting for him. From the look on her face, it is clear that something is the matter, with the boy assuming she must have discovered that he's been sneaking out to commit vigilantism, though when he goes to ask, she simply hands him a sealed letter bearing the logo of UA. At once, all of the emotions and insecurities from the past week come bubbling up again, stronger and more turbulent than ever, though remembering what Knuckleduster said, he grits his teeth and opens the envelope. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.